Henry Carter lived a life meticulously curated, every financial decision calculated, every investment deliberate. His world was built on stability, both in wealth and in love. Or so he believed. His wife, Aurora, was a vision of elegance and charm, a woman who could command a room with nothing more than a knowing smile. Their marriage wasn't just comfortable, it was passionate, intoxicating. Nights burned with urgency, whispered promises melting into tangled sheets, the air thick with the musk of indulgence. She was the kind of woman men envied him for, the kind who seemed incapable of deceit. But perfection has a way of cracking beneath the weight of illusion. While Henry spent his days maneuvering the financial labyrinth of high-stakes corporate strategy, Aurora wove her own intricate web, a silent siphon of his trust, his security, his fortune. He had always prided himself on his ability to read risk, anticipate threats, control every variable. And yet, the greatest betrayal had unfolded under his very nose, hidden beneath lingering kisses and honeyed words. He had trusted her, worshipped her even, never suspecting that the very woman who clung to him in the dark was the same one sharpening the knife behind his back. It began as a whisper of doubt, a fleeting anomaly in an otherwise predictable routine. Henry had always been a man of precision, his life governed by logic, his financial empire built on careful calculation. Numbers didn't lie. And yet, the numbers in his bank statement began to shift like shadows, slipping between the cracks of his perfect life. It wasn't a single withdrawal or a glaring discrepancy. It was subtle, insidious. 100 here, 500 there, a slow, steady bleed that should have been imperceptible. But Henry noticed. He always noticed. The first real tremor came when he received a fraud alert, a credit card opened in his name, approved weeks ago, while he had been in London closing a major deal. A mistake, surely. But when he called the bank, the voice on the other end was far too certain. Approved 3 weeks ago, Mr. Carter. Would you like to dispute the charges? Something in his gut twisted. Aurora. His mind fought the thought, even as his instinct screamed. She had access to everything. His social security number, his passwords, every detail needed to commit financial treason. But why? Was she desperate? Blackmail? Or was it something darker? His fingers hovered over their joint account login, and as the screen loaded, his stomach clenched. Thousands of dollars missing. Not in sweeping transactions, but in quiet, steady withdrawals. A pattern so meticulous it almost felt deliberate. The woman who had once whispered forever against his skin had been stealing from him all along. Henry had spent years trusting Aurora blindly. But trust is a fragile thing. It shatters the moment you see the truth staring back at you. As he combed through the financial records, tracing each transaction like a breadcrumb trail leading into the abyss, his unease hardened into certainty. Luxury hotels, Michelin-starred restaurants, first-class flights to places he had never been. The numbers didn't lie, and neither did the names attached to the bookings. There was, nestled between spa charges and boutique purchases, a reservation for two. Paul Whitman. The name glowed on the screen like a wound torn open. Henry's pulse slowed, his breath steady, controlled. But beneath that calm surface, something deep and dark stirred, a storm gathering in the distance. His fingers hovered over Aurora's phone as she lay beside him. Wrapped in the sheets they had shared for years. He didn't need to unlock it, didn't need to dig further. Her phone betrayed her before he even touched it. A text notification flashed across the screen, short, damning, dripping with indulgence. Last night was unforgettable. When can I see you again? His body remained still, but his mind sharpened. A blade against the deception that had wrapped around him like silk. It wasn't just theft. It wasn't just betrayal. It was lust, indulgence, and arrogance. She had stolen from him to fuel nights spent in another man's arms, to moan another man's name while still wearing the diamonds Henry had bought for her. She had no idea the storm was coming. Henry didn't confront her. Not yet. Confrontation was for men who acted on impulse, men who let their rage dictate their actions. No, Henry was patient. He was methodical. He would make her believe she was safe, let her sink deeper into her illusions of control, until the ground beneath her finally gave way. That night, when Aurora slipped into bed beside him, he didn't pull away. Instead, he did the unthinkable. He pulled her closer. His fingers traced the familiar curves of her body, the same body she had given to another man. His lips brushed against her ear, slow and deliberate, and he felt the way she melted against him, sighing in that breathy way that had once driven him mad. A liar's sigh, a traitor's breath. "You've been working so hard lately," he murmured against her skin, his tone rich with feigned devotion. "You deserve to be spoiled." Aurora preened under his attention, her nails dragging along his chest, her lips curling into that same smug, seductive smile she had perfected over the years. She had no idea that Henry had already frozen the accounts. No idea that the credit cards she had used so recklessly were already flagged for fraud. No idea that he had seen the messages, the reservations, the receipts that proved her betrayal. She kissed him deeply, blindly, thinking she had won. Henry kissed her back, slowly, thoroughly. Let her believe it. Let her bask in her victory. For now, Aurora continued spinning her web of deceit, oblivious to the fact that Henry had already set the trap. She carried on as if nothing had changed, spending his money, laughing into another man's ear, indulging in a luxury she had not earned. And Henry? He let her. Each stolen dollar was another thread tightening around her throat, another nail in the coffin she was so blissfully building for herself. He watched her carefully, studying the way she moved, the way she still pressed herself against him at night, as though her body alone could erase the numbers on the bank statements. She believed she was untouchable. That was her greatest mistake. Behind the scenes, Henry orchestrated her downfall with the precision of a surgeon. First, he met with his bank, filing fraud reports so detailed they left no room for doubt. Then, he transferred all liquid assets to a private account, ensuring that when the walls caved in, she would have nothing to hold on to. Not a penny, not a prayer. The final move? He let her keep spending, let her book another weekend getaway, another extravagant dinner with Paul. Let her order another designer handbag she wouldn't even get to use, because by the time the charges cleared, the accounts would be frozen. And when that moment came, when her credit cards failed, when the whispers of fraud investigations reached her ears, Henry would be there to watch her world collapse. She was still dancing in the fire, unaware that Henry had already turned off the music. The first sign of her unraveling came one evening as Aurora stood in the kitchen, absent-mindedly scrolling through her phone. Henry watched from across the room, taking in the way her fingers slowed, the way her brow furrowed ever so slightly. A flicker of tension there and gone in an instant. She had noticed. She tapped her screen again, a little harder this time. A long pause. Then another tap. Her lips parted as if to speak, but no words came. Instead, she let out a sharp exhale and muttered, "That's strange." Henry kept his expression neutral, watching as she tossed her phone onto the counter, feigning nonchalance. "Something wrong?" he asked, his voice a masterpiece of casual disinterest. Aurora hesitated, then forced a laugh. "Just a bank issue. One of my payments didn't go through." Henry nodded slowly. "Huh, must be a glitch." She studied him for a beat too long. Was she suspicious? Did she feel the noose tightening? He met her gaze with the practiced ease of a man who had spent years controlling his emotions. She wouldn't see it. Not yet. That night, she reached for him in bed, seeking the comfort of familiarity, of control. Henry obliged, letting her believe she still had power over him. His hands traced her skin, his lips murmuring false assurances, all while his mind was somewhere else entirely, already at the finish line. She had no idea that by morning, the game would be over. The morning of reckoning arrived, wrapped in an envelope, its weight far heavier than the paper it was printed on. When the courier knocked, Aurora answered the door with the lazy grace of a woman who had never known real consequences. She took the package without thought, barely sparing it a glance, as she sipped on her overpriced iced coffee. It wasn't until she saw the letterhead, Mr. Stephen, attorney at law, that her fingers stiffened around the paper. Henry sat at the dining table, calmly flipping through his phone, every movement calculated, every breath measured. He could feel her panic before he saw it. The rip of tearing paper. The rustle of pages flipped too fast. Then silence. Aurora's breath hitched. Harry looked up, feigning mild curiosity. "Something wrong, babe?" Her head snapped up, eyes wide, her complexion drained of its usual glow. She opened her mouth and closed it, scanning the documents again, as if reading them a second time would change the inevitable. "Ew." Her voice cracked, unraveling at the edges. "You're filing for divorce?" Henry leaned back in his chair, folding his arms across his chest. "Of course." His smirk was razor sharp. Fraud is a crime, Aurora. And unfortunately for you, I'm not paying for yours. She flipped frantically through the pages, her breath coming in quick, uneven gasps. No, this isn't fair. Henry exhaled slowly, savoring the moment. Neither was stealing from me. And just like that, the walls came crashing down. That night, Henry celebrated. Not with champagne, not with revenge-fueled arrogance, but with something far more intoxicating. A woman who wasn't a liar. A woman who didn't reek of betrayal. Her name was Sophia. She had been watching him all evening from across the dimly lit bar. Her dark eyes filled with something that wasn't just curiosity. It was hunger. The kind that didn't ask for anything more than the moment. When he slid into the seat beside her, she didn't ask his name. She simply leaned in, her perfume heady, intoxicating, lips curving into a knowing smile as she whispered, "You look like a man who needs a distraction." And maybe he did. Maybe he wanted to erase the feel of Aurora's touch, the taste of her deception still lingering like bitter wine on his tongue. Maybe he just wanted to remember what it felt like to have something real, something raw. He took her home. No pretenses, no lies, no strings. Just heat, skin against skin, hands grasping, mouths colliding in a fevered urgency. She gasped his name as he pressed her against the sheets. And for the first time in months, it wasn't the sound of deception. It was pure, unfiltered desire. As dawn filtered through the blinds, Sophia traced lazy circles on his chest, whispering, "Whatever she did to you, she's an idiot." Henry exhaled, his smirk slow and lethal. She was more than an idiot. He kissed her deeply. She was a lesson. Aurora's downfall wasn't loud. It wasn't some dramatic spectacle of screaming and tears. It was quiet, a slow, merciless suffocation. She tried to fight it at first. She called the bank, her voice saccharine, playing the role of the confused wife. But the doors were already locked. The fraud reports had been processed. The accounts were frozen. The creditors weren't interested in charm. They wanted their money. Then came Paul, her last hope. She called, texted, begged. He blocked her. Whatever thrill he once found in her had vanished the moment the money dried up. Her apartment was next. Eviction. Nowhere to run, no safety net. She tried to borrow, to manipulate, to seduce her way out of the abyss. But desperation wasn't attractive, and no one was willing to gamble on a woman with nothing left to offer. Then, just like that, she was gone. No calls, no texts, just silence. Henry never asked where she went. He didn't need to. He had already won. The morning after her disappearance, his phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. "She's gone. Thought you'd like to know." He took a sip of his coffee, smirked, and deleted the message without another thought. She played the game, and she lost. Trust is a currency. Spend it wisely. In today's world, where financial independence and digital footprints are intertwined, blind trust can be dangerous. Always protect your assets. Love should never mean unchecked access to your finances. Monitor your accounts, stay alert to red flags, and never assume loyalty is proof of honesty. People can fake emotions, but numbers never lie. Whether in relationships or business, deception often starts small until it's too late. And when betrayal strikes, don't react with emotion, respond with strategy. In life as in finance, the smartest move isn't revenge. It's making sure they can never hurt you again.